We're finally back to another round of Phobias as Demons. I've talked before about how I've thought about changing this series up and maybe doing something like famous pop culture characters as demons, but with so many fantastic suggestions coming in from all of you on the previous episodes in this series, I figured I had to do at least one more Phobias as Demons episode. If not, maybe, 2 or 3 more. So today I've taken 4 more of the fantastic suggestions that you've all left me, and we're turning those phobias into demons. Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. When fear takes hold of us, it can often expand and multiply in its dominance over our better judgment, leaving us a panicking, hyperventilating mess of irrational reaction instead of intelligent response. This state of exaggerated alarm and terror is the deepest craving and hunger of the soulless, ravenous entities that we call demons. While all demons have different skill sets when it comes to their ability to terrify, with some only able to scare certain people, others are so horrifically malicious that they could drench in fear near any they came across. One of these such beings is the demon known as Claustraniac. This monster has a humanoid head and arms atop a rotund body that opens into a gaping, slimy maw. From its back spawn 3 worm-like tentacles that can expand to swallow people whole. Those that this demon seeks out most are beings with a fear of tight spaces, and its physiology is such that it can draw that fear to the front of their mind within seconds of encountering these poor souls. When their prey is found, alone, often in the night, this demon will latch onto their feet with one of its tentacles and slowly slurp them inside, reveling in their victim's struggle as their whole body is slowly devoured more and more into the constricting tendril. The initial feasting will often last 10 minutes, but once they're inside, the torment does not end with them suffocating. Against all logic, the victim is able to breathe inside the tentacle, and so they remain alive, squeezed so tightly they can barely move as they slowly slide along for hours until they're finally dropped into the beast's stomach. Well, the demon doesn't need to breathe. Its body pulses as if it is breathing, so that the dark space around the victim expands, giving them the slightest room to move, then retracts, squeezing them tightly once again. It will vary the speed and depth of the squeeze to stay unpredictable and keep the person's fear growing and growing, unsure how long the beast will keep them alive inside this cruelly tight space. In some cases, it will allow its stomach to open slightly so the victim can see light pouring in and give them hope of escape. In even crueler cases, it will let the person push free and run just so it can chase them down again and once more gulp them slowly through its tentacle and start the process all over again. Only after a sufficient degree of terror has bathed their prey will Claustraniac commence digesting the poor soul inside them. Now, going into this design felt very similar to going into the Nyctophobia demon design, Nyktos of the Shadows from the last episode, where there wasn't as obvious an idea going into it as with some of the other demon designs. And the first thing that came to my mind when I thought of Claustrophobia was when I saw King Kong, the 2005 Peter Jackson one. There's a scene where a bunch of the characters in the movie are in this bug pit with these giant bug creatures, and I think it's Andy Serkis's character gets attacked by something that looks like the tentacles on this guy, that they start slowly eating over his arms and then his head, and he's still kind of thrashing around as they're just slowly engulfing his whole body, and it just creeped me out so much. But I felt like it was such a good idea to use for this guy, then having that only be one part of the tormenting process for this demon, having them in the stomach as it's kind of breathing and giving them more space and less space. All that just felt like it was going to work really well for the concept, and I feel like design-wise it all came together super nicely. Really love this one. I think it's one of the best demons I've done in the series so far, and I hope you all like our Claustrophobia demon. Insects are not a kind of creature that many people would claim to love. Ask the average person their thoughts on these multi-legged critters that crawl around underfoot and buzz by overhead, and the general response would likely range from dislike to disdain. But some people feel much more strongly, even still. Some people have a severe fear of insects, and these are the people that Entomantis commonly seeks out. This demon is a 12-foot tall hornet beast whose buzzing wings can be heard from a mile away, but only by those who it's chosen to prey upon. You see, it can shrink down to the size of a common hornet, and will do so to remain inconspicuous as it locates its victim. Once it's sought someone out, it will spend a day buzzing around them intermittently, stirring up the initial ripples of fear. Once the swell has begun, it will land on them, sting them, then fly away. As the venom sinks into their blood, the sounds of insects will be amplified all around them, crawling and skittering, clicking their mandibles and buzzing their wings. Soon after, the feeling of bugs crawling along their skin will become a constant sensation that they can't escape from, slowly driving them mad. Soon after, the creature will hunt them down in its full size, grab them out of their daily life, and whisk them off to a forest or cave. There, Entomantis will bite their prey, releasing a new toxin into their blood, which quickly makes them irresistible to all insects around. All kinds of bugs will swarm towards the victim, crawling into their hair and under their clothes, even into their ears and nose. Sometimes Entomantis will even leave them like this for days, allowing them to run through the wilds trying to escape the insects, but only drawing more and more to them as they flee. Some have managed to escape the swarms by getting to water and staying submerged for as long as they can, only briefly popping up for air when they have to, until the venom wears off. But even then, they have to discover another way to escape, before Entomantis finds them, bites them again, and draws the swarms to them once more. Now, this wasn't one that was difficult to come up with a concept for right off the bat. It was like the snake demon or the dog demon. It's just, I was gonna pull a whole bunch of different freaky bug elements and make as monstrous looking of a bug as I could. I focused most of my attention on its head. I knew I wanted to give it 2 sets of eyes and try out a bunch of different mandibles and just lots of different elements. I was looking at a lot of close-ups of bugs' heads to get ideas, and there was so much cool stuff to pull from. I wasn't sure if I was gonna be creeped out looking at close-ups of bugs, but they didn't really freak me out that much. I mean, I think looking at a close-up of a bug to me is less creepy than seeing one out of the corner of your eye skitter towards you or something like that. I don't love bugs, I don't strongly dislike bugs. Personally though, I will jump a lot if something buzzes past my ear, but to be fair, that's partially because in my life I've twice been attacked by full hives of wasps and hornets, and beyond that I've been stung another 8 to 10 times. For some reason, wasps and hornets and bees, they all just really like stinging me, though it has been a while, so I don't want to jinx it, gonna knock on wood. But anyway, there's not really a ton to describe for this one. I really just did go all out with different freaky bug elements. I think it turned out really cool. Maybe not quite one of the creepier ones, but if you're afraid of insects, then maybe it will be to you. Let's take a look at the finished result. There are many kinds of social phobias. They range from the fear of eating around others to the fear of public speaking, but some dig to a deeper, more specific depth in certain people. Public speaking can be intimidating to many, but in the context of that very act, some gain genuine terror from speaking to a mass of people and coming across a long word. It's essentially a fear of mispronouncing or misspeaking and being mocked by peers as a result. This fear is called Hippopotomonstrosisquipedeliaphobia, and while it is more rare than many other fears, it too has a demon who seeks those who have it. Hippopotamus alicomonstrumus is a 3-eyed humanoid demon with a decaying dictionary for a head. Constantly swirling around it are rings on which are written some of the longest words in multiple languages, changing to suit that spoken by the victim it seeks. This demon doesn't eat as frequently as many others, but when it finds its prey, it will torment them slowly, drinking in their fear from afar for months before finishing them off. It hunts down those with fear of social situations who have just moved to a new town or school. While they sleep, it will send its rings into their room to swirl around them, haunting their minds with thoughts of massively long words and nightmares about misspeaking and stuttering before new people they wish to make a good impression on. With their mind cursed each night, during the day, anytime they get in front of a group of even just 5 people to speak, their thoughts will be flooded with long words that they can't possibly hope to pronounce on the first try. Any book they open will appear to be made up of words with a minimum of 7 syllables each. They'll grow more and more terrified about the idea of even talking to others. They'll keep away from any people, fearing slipping up in their speech and embarrassing themselves. The more they pull away from interactions with others, the more fear is able to stew in their mind and marinate them for Hippocropus's feasting. There is one proven way to defeat this demon and to ward it off from you if it has set its sights on devouring you. The day it's decided to come for you and finish you off will always be one in which you find yourself in front of a large group of people. The demon's name will flash briefly in your mind, and you must say it out loud to all the people around. They'll have no idea what you're talking about. It will likely be embarrassing, but it's even alright to stumble through the name. The point is to say it with as much confidence as possible, and show the demon that your fear is conquerable and not worth losing your life over. When you say Hippopotomonstrosisquipedeliaphobia name aloud, you're essentially saying, "You can't have me, demon." Now, this was actually supposed to be the goofy one of the episode. I put out a poll asking people what they wanted the goofy demon to be for this episode, either Turophobia, the fear of cheese, or this. And I didn't really know much about this one. I'd just seen a lot of people recommend it as the fear of long words, and, you know, it obviously being funny that Hippopotomonstrosisquipedeliaphobia is a super long word. But then, obviously, you heard from that lore. When I looked into it, I kind of get that social phobia a little bit. Like, I wouldn't say I have it, but that's definitely, if you have a fear of public speaking, coming across a massive word would obviously make it a lot worse. So the lore for this one didn't really end up being as funny as, say, you know, the peanut butter stuck to the roof of your mouth demon or something like that, but it was still a fun one to work with. I had the idea right away to have some big words kind of swirling around the character, and then I also really liked the idea of making its face/mouth a big, sort of grinning book, and then the decaying element was a fun part to make it a little bit more demonic. Don't know where the idea for the 3 eyes came from, just kind of came to me in the moment and I went with it, along with a lot of the other stuff in this design. But I like it, hope you all do too. Here's our Hippopotomonstrosisquipedeliaphobia demon. Cleanliness is something that many take pride in. It's always good to be conscious of your hygiene, but some become overly obsessive about staying perfectly clean. Some are so afraid of dirt and germs that they'll do anything and everything to avoid coming in contact with any surface on which may lie bacteria. An old friend of mine used to have this very fear. He wouldn't even set foot in a park, terrified of getting his shoes muddy and then having to clean them off. And because Clayton was so terrified of germs, he drew the attention of the demon Mysomucus. Mysomucus is an oozing demonic orb that resembles a large germ. It stands at 7 feet tall and walks on its hands, which, as a result, are constantly covered in dirt and mud. It shoots foul-smelling clouds of spores that activate allergies in any who inhale it, but much more severely in those who are in a state of fear. Now, when the demon came for Clayton in his first year of high school, it was not only coming for him. You see, his fear was transgenerational. He'd gotten it from his father, who obsessively cleaned every surface in their house constantly and rarely left home to avoid interactions with germs. So the day the demon came to their home, when Clayton's mother was out of town, Mysomucus was set for the feast of its life. It surrounded Clayton's home in a swirling cloud of spores, then crashed its way through their wall. It scurried around their home, stamping its muddy hands on every surface, but especially on those near an exit. Clayton and his father were both too terrified to step out into the cloud of swirling spores and germs outside, and eventually huddled together in a corner as the demon briefly left, then stomped back into the house with an extra thick layer of mud on its hands, leaving a trail as it stomped towards the two cowering beings in the corner. The demon scooped into its hand a glob of the mucus constantly drooling from its orifices, mixing it in with the mud, then spreading it across both Clayton and his father. Clayton's father was quaking and sweating profusely. Clayton too was terrified, but something clicked in his mind as he sat there before a demon covered in dirt and grime and filth. He felt disgusting, but it wasn't killing him. If he was already covered in germs, then it couldn't be any worse if he escaped by running out into the smog outside. He tried everything to pick his dad up and tell him to run, but the man couldn't move. He was paralyzed in terror. The demon scooped up more of its mucus, slowly raising it towards them, but Clayton closed his eyes and tackled into the demon, pushing it back. Sensing his fear diminishing, it grabbed him and hurled him out a window into the spores outside. Clayton instantly started to sneeze and his eyes swelled and itched. His head throbbed as he limped his way back into the house, trying to find his father. But soon the spores overtook him and he fainted. When he came to, his house was clean. The walls were undamaged and the spores outside were gone. But so too was Clayton's father. He never saw his dad again and has a pretty fair estimate of what happened to him. Clayton thereafter completely conquered his fear of germs. He read up on the human immune system to increase his confidence in his body's ability to protect him from germs, and would actively seek out situations in which he'd have to get dirty, even partaking in mud runs for a heavy dose of exposure therapy. Soon after, he turned his attention towards demons, learning all he needed to know about them to start hunting them down and making sure no others fell at the hands of these monsters as his father had. Unfortunately for him, his dad wouldn't be the last person he'd lose to a demon. Now that lore was a little bit longer than some of the other ones, so I don't really have time for many design notes, but for anyone who watched Benny Sharp Saves Christmas from Lots and Lots of Demons, now you have a better idea of some of Clayton's background. And for people who haven't watched it, he was a character introduced in that original story episode. Anyway, let's take a look at the finished result. Well, I'm kind of tempted to now say that this is the best Phobias as Demons episode, but of course that is a really tough call because I also really like how the third episode turned out, and I really like the second episode, and the first. I just like all the episodes in this series. And of course I'm super excited to design some more demons, so give me your suggestions in the comments below, whether that be for something else to turn into demons or just more Phobias as Demons episodes. I'm cool with whatever, this series is really fun to do. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen the other episodes in this series, you might want to go check those out. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or uplifting note. And today I'm just going to share a quote that I really like by a man named Russell Simmons. And that's that what holds most people back isn't the quality of their ideas, but their lack of faith in themselves. You have to live your life as though you're already where you want to be. Feel like there's not really anything I need to add to that one. Hope it's helpful to someone out there. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye, everybody.